Hey folks, welcome back to another Poem Masters video, and today we're going to talk about the banner dropping later tonight at resets, which is the Elesa and Clement one, right? This is a dual banner, so I'd assume all the old rules for dual banners do apply. Probably split 1.5% rates and probably 3 daily discounts, right? Although this one does have a new catch, right? And that is every time you pull an extra, an Elesa, you also get a Elesa specific power up that you can only use on her, right? Which is nice because she is getting a 6-star EX, and her 6-star EX is honestly very, very powerful, right? In comparison to a lot of 6-star EXs in the game, her 6-star EX is up there with some of the best, right? Because of her newly expanded sync grid, and we'll talk about that later. So, and there's also Clement as well for some reason. Anyways, let's talk about these syncers before we talk much more about the banners. So let's talk about Clement first, right? Since there isn't that much to talk about Clement, right? Nothing really changed much with him. I mean, he got better. Clement definitely got a buff with Volkner and Luxray, right? But yeah, let's talk about it. So for those who don't know, right, if you're new, Clement is a electric type tech unit, right? Weak to ground. Actually, he's weak to fighting. Never mind. I thought it was gonna be. But I mean, Heliolisk is normal electric, right? Never mind. It's fighting. So yeah, and as for its passives, it has piercing gaze, so his moves doesn't miss. Charting Sun 5, extra 50% damage. In Sun, HP advantage 4, more HP as remain, more powers up moves. So Helios in general is a really interesting general tech unit. Like, it doesn't really have too much specific uses. Like, a lot of the techs are very, very specific, right? In terms of what teams you want to build it with, what specific use it is, right? Acerola, that's a good example, right? You want to use it in sand teams, right? With stuff like Cynthia or Steelix, right? That could utilize the sand, or with units like Masquerade, right, to help units that do have stuff like fighting or whatever, or needs a decent tank, that needs any units that needs their opponent's special attack to be lowered. Although Helios does have that as well, but a lot of what Helios does you could use even in a very general sense as well. But Helios only again, it's still a tech unit, but Helios only gets its full potential when you're using it as for specific units, right? But when you're not using it for specific units, he could still be run very well as just a general tech unit that you insert on any team, right? So he has Electro Web, which is AoE speed lowering, right? Mud Slap, which lowers the opponent's accuracy at only 1 gauge, which is fantastic. And then Activate raises its speed and evasion, ensures next attack is a crit. This is kind of whatever. It's a really weak trainer move in my opinion. And then Parabolic Charge, which is an AoE attack that also heals you, so that's really nice as well. You see a lot of people, sometimes running solo Clement against whatever stage, like literally solo Clement, like no sides, just like one Clement, just because Parabolic Charge does heal a decent amount that could sustain him, and also does good enough damage so that you could actually beat the opponents. So Clement, the sync move is, the more the opponent's speed is lower, the more it powers up the sync move. So there's that as well, right? So there are a few ways to use Clement other than just generally just lowering opponent's speed, accuracy, right? There are some specific uses that make him really, really good. First of all, you got Electro Web, which is an AoE slow, so units with stuff like Cakewalk, Hunter's Instinct, that powers up their moves or sync moves when the opponent's speed is lowered, that definitely helps a lot. Stuff like Barry has that, Kukui, right? There are multiple units that do have their moves power up when the opponent is slowed, right? So you could use that. Mud Slap, lower the opponent's accuracy, very, very good for units that do have either evasion buffs and or has Ridicule, right? With that stuff like Rotom, Ridicule, you heal when you dodge, right? Or other units that just in general just buff their evasion, stuff like an Ethan or whatever, right? So that definitely helps. And Parabolic Charge, well, this is just for healing Clement himself, which could actually make Clement tank a decent amount of attacks. He does have good defenses. The HP is not the best, but you could do something with Parabolic Charge, I guess. A lot of people run a Parabolic Charge grid for a meme Clement solo thing. So anyways, moving on to sync grid, right? Clement's sync grid is very, very good. For starters, you got, and this is my favorite part of this grid, you got Mud Slap, Move Gauge Refresh. You got 2 Mud Slap, Move Gauge Refresh 3s on an already 1 gauge move. So most of the time, every time you use Mud Slap, you will be giving yourself or your whole team Move Gauge instead of consuming it, right? Which is fantastic. And again, you also do lower their accuracy. As for some other stuff, you got Electro Web, Sapphire Snarl, so if you want, you could also use the Electro Web to potentially lower your opponent's special attack as well, so there's that. You got a lot of weather stuff, Refreshing Rain, Dizzying Power, right, Raging, not Dizzying Power, that's not, Raging Rain, Surging Sand, Sands of Time, you got a lot of those, and then you got some, power-ups, right, Dizzying Power, more the accuracy's lowered, it powers up your moves, Cakewalk, more the speed's lowered, powers up sync moves, right. And then you got Master Healer and Parabolic Charge, which again increases the amount that you heal from Parabolic Charge. And then you also got Mud Slap Ramp Up. If you don't have any supports, you could increase your own special attack. Not that it's a huge deal. I mean, it depends on the team comp, I guess. So there's that, and then 2 NPRs for Activate, right? Look how generous they were back in the day with NPRs, and look what we have now. And obviously power-ups for your moves and all that stuff. So yeah, Clement's a very great generalist. However, Clement is like the epitome, like the kind of like definition of units that you do not need immediately, but will be very, very nice if you get it down the line sometime, right? So unless you're not unless you're like a huge Clement fan, again, Clement is fantastic, but you really don't urgently need Clement for anything. It's best if you just pick him up down the line on some other banner, right, which would be nice. So moving on to Elesa, which is the more interesting one, because Elesa used to be, in my opinion, a bottom 5 striker in the game. It's just so incredibly terrible. And it still is without a grid, right? But she is getting a sync grid expanded tonight, and the sync grid is amazing, especially since she is also getting a 6-star EX as well. The combination of her grid and her 6-star EX is just so incredibly good, right? And let's talk about that. So her, Pokemon Zebstrika, she is a 5-star striker, weak to ground, electric type. She has Fast Track too, 30% chance of raising your speed after you use a move, which is fantastic, and then prevents from being paralyzed, which is kind of whatever. As for her stats, she has phenomenal HP, right? Good attack, and then not that great defense, but they're not terrible defenses either. If you compare them to Hilda, better than Hilda's defenses, right? As they kind of have like the same sort of stuff there, and very, very good speed. So like her speed on top of like having Fast Track is fantastic. Overall, again, their HP is really, really good, and then the attack is not terrible either. So, as for his moves, it has Spark, moderate chance of paralyzing the opponent, which is a very, very good chance of paralyzing the opponent, and, the power isn't, like, terrible either, right? For something that has such a high rate to paralyze the opponent on a 2-gauge move. Generally, you won't be using Spark to deal damage. However, you can actually deal very, very good damage to Spark on her sync grid, right? X attack is X attack. Well, charge, big damage, 20% recoil, right? 3-gauge. Electrifying is your training move. You heal 40%, and then you get a guaranteed crit, which is actually, in this case, very, very, very good now that her sync grid expanded. Because usually guaranteed crits are kind of whatever, right? However, in Elisa's case, Electrifying is very, very good now that her sync grid is expanded, because on her sync grid, she does have inertia, which is a sync nuke, right? And the biggest problem with sync nukers is you don't have guaranteed crits, because even at 100% crit, right, plus 3 crit, your sync move is only 80% crit. It gets downgraded by 1. However, with Electrifying, you have a guaranteed crit on your sync move, which is fantastic, right? For Elesa, and also you heal a bit, which heals up the wild charge damage that you do to yourself if you are using wild charge at all, right? So moving on to her sync grid, this is not her sync grid, at the bottom, right? Zebstrika, she got a lot of really, really good stuff. The big one over here is inertia, and I say it's big because it wouldn't be as big if she didn't get her 6-star EX outfit with this, but she did get her 6-star EX outfit. And with inertia, it's just phenomenal, right? You're getting an AoE sync nuke from Zebstrika, right? Which is, again, very, very powerful. So you do have that, right? As for some other stuff, You get 2 stand fast, so you don't, completely take yourself out with wild charges. It's still gonna hurt, but you do have some other remedies with that. You do have stuff like where is it? First aid that could help you with that. So there's that, I guess. As for some other stuff, right? You have a lot of like a lot of people sort of like compare Zebstrika's Synchro to Hilda, which I'm not a huge fan of comparing these two. However, you do see, some bright spots on Elisa's grid, which is probably overall better than Hilda's. But again, very, very, very different. I really hate when people compare these. They're very, very different units. So what basically. Okay, yeah, you know what? I'll just talk about the differences while we're at it, right? Hilda has Potion with Master Healer, which is something that she does very, very well. On top of what she has on her grid, right? She has, I think, more Standfast nodes than Elesa on Flare Blitz, right? But the thing with Hilda is Hilda does not do that much damage in comparison to Elesa on her recoil move, right? And I think her recoil does more, like 5% more or something, which is also slightly bad. But generally, what Hilda does have is again the potion thing, which is fantastic. But in terms of damage, right? Just straight up damage, Elesa is really good in that department, right? I think Hilda also does more on her sync move because she has like higher base attack, right? But again, in terms of just wild charge, Zebstrika does more because Zebstrika just has like Hilda. I don't think has any multipliers at all except for like a power reserve or something probably. Or is there like a super duper effective one? I can't remember. Super duper effective 2, right? So that's the only multiplier that Embor has. Well, Zebstrika has over here ramming speed and paralysis synergy 3. So that's an extra 60% if you pick them all up, right? On your multipliers, which is fantastic, and you could pick them up, right? So Zebstrika again generally just does more on the regular move and does a bit less on the sync. Oh, also Hilda has the extra sync notes on her sync grid as well, right? So they do really different things. They do. I mean, they're both strikers. They want to take out the opponent, but their play styles are actually quite different in my opinion. So yeah, her grid is fantastic. Burst is terrible. Pressure Cooker's not that great either, honestly. Yeah. Pressure Cooker's terrible. Fast Track is nice as well. Hostile Environment 1 with Spark, and that's why I've been talking about. You could actually make a legitimate Spark build that does very, very well as with Inertia, where you could paralyze the opponent and then do really solid damage on the Spark, right? While also outputting your really big sync move on Inertia if you don't have say like enough healers or whatever to maintain a stand fast wild charge build with Inertia, right? So you could also do that as well. But overall, Elesa plus the new 6R EX outfit for her is fantastic, right? So as for the banner itself, right? Like I already mentioned before, there's really no point pulling for Clement. For Elesa, here's the thing about Elesa, right? She is phenomenal with her 6-star EX. However, without the 6-star EX, she's just regular good, which is still very, very good, right? She's just about as good as Hilda, right? Without the 6-star EX. With the 6-star EX, obviously, she's better. But she is also still the best electric type striker overall, right? In terms of, total damage output. However, if you really need, I think Volkner at the moment is a much better pickup if you are not planning to get Elesa to 6-star EX, right? And if you're not trying to get Elesa to 6-star EX, I probably won't suggest pulling on this banner at all. I think this would be an easy skip. Like, the only reason why you probably want to pull on this one is if you want Elesa at 6-star EX, and or if you just really like Elesa or Clement a lot, right? Which is fine, because the rates are going to be much better than other banners for that, and then you get the extra power ups for Elesa as well. But outside of that, I mean, if you really want, you could just do dailies on the banner, but I wouldn't really dedicate too much resources on this banner because again, we still have Volkner's up, which Volkner, even though Volkner's damage is not that great in comparison, like it does good damage, it's just not as sustainable as say Elesa or whatever, right? And you do have to spend some resources elsewhere on Volkner's banner to do all the other tech stuff like set up electric terrain, all that. Yeah, Volkner is, it just has more utility. I just like Volkner's utility better, and again, also plus Halloween banners are still just around the corner. Save your gems for probably a Halloween banner. Either that, or if you still want Sings of Blue, you can still pick them up. I would have to caution, like Sings of Blue is still fantastic, but the buff you got is slightly underwhelming, unfortunately. But anyway, it's still good though. Yeah. Anyways, that's me with this one. I guess I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoy this video. Spread on channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. Per se, I will not be pulling on this banner. I mean, I'll be doing dailies, but not in doing a stream. So don't expect that, as I usually don't do them for banner reruns for units I already have that max out. So anyways, again, I'll see you guys in the next one.